Someone had to say it.
Welcome back to Someone Had to Say It. On today's episode, I interviewed Jeremy and Ilana from mybestsociallife.com. They are friendship and dating coaches who teach the strategies and skills that empower autistic and neurodivergent adults to find community, make friends, start dating, and being able to build relationships. Ilana has over 16 years of experience as a special education teacher in New York City, and Jeremy has over 14 years of experience as a social coach for autistic and neurodivergent adults. I truly hope you enjoy this conversation, hopefully learn some things, and come back next time. Thank you for listening and enjoy. Welcome, Ilana, Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy we're able to talk because I have a lot of questions for you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Of course. So let's just jump right into it because, like I said, I have a lot of questions. I've been thinking about this for a while. And first, I guess, tell me, how did you get started in not just coaching, but working with autistic neurodivergent adults? How did that come about?
So I had this was not my grand plan in life. It actually started back in New York. I started a young professionals organization on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. We very, very quickly grew to about 1,300 people in just a few short years. We would throw events and 100, 150, 200 people would come. And what was really interesting was they all just sucked at meeting each other. They just did. I would walk into events by myself and I would walk out with new friends or a bunch of people to go to a bar with afterwards or a date. And after a while, some of my friends just started coming up to me and just saying, "What are you doing that we're not doing? What are we doing wrong?" And my answer was, "I don't have any idea. Like, I'm just being me." Um, but they said, "Well, you have to teach us how to do what you're doing." And I said, I have no clue how that would work. But it did touch something off in me, and I spent 3 years reading everything I could get my hands on about what makes people click with each other. And then I took that to the JCC in New York City, and I said, "Hey, folks, can I run a workshop on how to help awkward people meet each other?" And they said, "Do we have to pay you?" And I said, not maybe not the first time. And so that's what we did. I ran these really cool workshops and I got invited back again and again and again. But what I didn't realize was that so many of the people who were coming to my workshop were from the three special needs organizations that were under the roof of the JCC. And so pretty soon those organizations started hiring me directly. One of them is a really well regarded organization called the Adaptations Program at the Silver Center for Special Needs. And I ended up being their in house friendship and dating coach for over 3 years because I loved it. I saw a group of people who so badly wanted human connection. They wanted friendships, they wanted dates, they wanted to be part of community. But it was so hard for them to do it. And no one was teaching it to them on any scalable way. And so I thought to myself, well, if anyone's going to be able to do this and figure this out, it's going to be me because I am tenacious as heck. And I've been doing it now since 2010. It's been a long time.
2010. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how did Ilana get involved? Was this after you guys were together, or because you also are married? We should say that you're a couple and you work together, and that's a whole other question that I have for later. But tell me how you got involved.
Yeah, so Jeremy and I actually met at a wedding. And when we met, I was a teacher. I was a special ed teacher in New York City. And being a special ed teacher, obviously, Jeremy told me what he was doing in addition to being a lawyer. And I was clearly very intrigued. So he invited me to sit in on one of our weekly client community calls. And I just fell in love with the community. So he couldn't get rid of me. But I was working on the East Coast. He was on the West Coast. So it worked out well. I would come home from my job as a classroom teacher and joined coaching calls and joined the weekly community call. So I was working very long hours, sometimes not going to, working until 10, 11 o'clock because he was on the West Coast. But I fell in love, and it was a community of people that were just so special. And I knew that this was something that I needed to do. So when we decided to get married, Jeremy said, try this out for 6 months, a year, see what you think. And then you can always go back to the classroom. And about a month in, he's like, so are you going back to the classroom? I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So he
Wow.
can't get rid of me now.
And how long have you been together and how long have you been married?
We are about 2 weeks shy of our 1-year wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
we've been dating,
About 3 years.
yeah, about 3 years, more or less. And
Wow.
Alana has now been part of Social Life 360, our program. She's the director of education for Social Life 360, and she's been doing that for about a year now.
Wow. Okay. And so, and from what I understand, tell me if I'm wrong, but you're also expecting, right? Did I see
We
that?
are.
So, Mazel Tov,
Thank
Thank
congratulations.
you.
you.
But Jeremy, you also have children as well, right? From a previous relationship.
I do, and they love Alana very, very much.
Feelings
What
mutual.
Oh, well, I love that. And I can't not ask my guests about their personal life, which we'll get into later because, I'm a matchmaker. This is what I do. I want to know everything, how and when. And the fact that Ilani, you were open to the fact that he had kids already. This is a constant struggle that I have with my clients that come into me and, say, I won't date anyone that have children, whether they're men or women. And to me it's so sad. So I love that you were open, and they're a gift. Kids are, I keep telling people, it's not a disease. He doesn't have a disease, he's got children, or
Right.
she has.
To me, it was a benefit. I always wanted a large family. Jeremy will tell you I've always wanted 4 children. But getting married a week shy of my 40th birthday, that's not in the cards for me. But I get to have a bigger family because we
Yeah.
have a blended family.
And not only that, you talk all the time about how you get to preview what I am like as a dad.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I
Yeah.
see what kind of father. There's no guessing involved. I know he's going to be an amazing father to our daughter because I see him with his kids, our kids.
Right.
And he's an amazing father.
Yeah, you can't hide that when you're with your children. You can't say, "Oh, I'm a great dad," and then you're actually seeing whether he is or not. So it's definitely a benefit. But well, going back to what you guys do, because I was fascinated when I heard about what you do, because I've had people that had all kinds of special needs that have come to me for matchmaking, but I could not match them because they were lacking. I don't want to say lacking, but their skills, their social skills were really they were struggling. And I remember another matchmaker years ago told me, there's so many people that are not just, whether they have special needs or not, whether they're on the spectrum or not, but people can be awkward in social situations. Every singles event I had, I would have groups of men sitting in the corner, standing in the corner, groups of women standing in the corner. And this is like a singles event. And I would literally have to take someone's hand, pull them aside, and say, listen, I want you to meet this person. And all night long, I'd be walking back and forth, literally bringing people together because they just, like you were talking about, Jeremy, people just didn't know how, or they were shy, or for whatever reason. So I think it's fascinating. And I would love to put together an event with you guys because I would say 75% of people in my database are very socially awkward. And it's a big need. I don't typically coach people that are neurodivergent, but they come to me and I want to help them. So now that I know you, obviously I'd love to refer people to you because you guys know what you're doing. But that was my next question: is what is neurodivergency and what is the difference between autism on the spectrum? Is it all under one umbrella? What's different?
So neurodivergence is an umbrella term, and it just means that your brain wiring is different from what typical brain wiring is. Now, Alana and I will be the first people to tell you that there really is no such thing as being neurotypical, right?
Mm,
There's no such thing as an average brain. Everyone's brain works differently. But when people talk about neurodivergence, what they're really talking about is a brain that functions differently in a way that makes something challenging. And
mm.
so autism and Asperger's is a type of neurodivergence, and it's often characterized by brain wiring that makes it hard to connect and communicate with someone else. So everyone who is autistic or on the spectrum is neurodivergent, but not everyone who's neurodivergent is autistic or on or has Asperger's or is on the spectrum.
So it is more of a social aspect that they're
For a
struggling.
lot of people,
Yeah.
people who have, for example, ADD or ADHD would consider themselves neurodivergent.
Mm,
That doesn't always impact their social living. It may impact their um,
Executive
their
function.
executive functioning, for
mm,
example. So neurodivergence isn't just about social stuff, but when you're
mhm.
talking about someone who's autistic or has Asperger's, oftentimes the way that neurodivergence expresses itself is in that challenge connecting with other human beings.
That's interesting. Yeah, I had a client that came to me probably over 10 years ago, and as an adult, I mean, he was in his 40s, and he said, "I'm really struggling to find someone, and I'm struggling because I recently got diagnosed that he was on the spectrum. I think um, I don't know if it was Asperger's. It was so long ago, but now I know we don't even use that term anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
But he said, yes, I was diagnosed, and I've been really struggling because it kind of changed the way I think about myself, the way I operate, everything. So we started working together, and one day I just said, I'm not sure that you have this, whatever this diagnosis that you were given. Are you sure? Because he had no issues with social skills. He had no issues meeting people. He would look me in the eye. He connected with people. It just to me, and I'm not a therapist. I'm not a professional. I'm not a medical doctor. And to me, from what I was seeing, I didn't see anything that he was diagnosed with that he said people were telling him, professionals were telling him that he has. So sure enough, he goes to a different. He went to a psychiatrist. He went to a medical doctor. He went to a slew of professionals. He called me and he said, "Julia, I don't have anything. I was misdiagnosed." And that diagnosis, in fact, made him so aware and so awkward and so scared for how people are seeing him that he completely ruined his dating life, his
Oh.
life. Do you ever see that? Has that ever happened to you guys when people come to you, and do you just think, I don't know, this or the opposite?
Well, the truth is, we don't ask people for a diagnosis when they come to us. You don't have to be autistic or have what used to be called Asperger's
Mhm.
to work with us. We don't really care what the label is.
Mm,
What we care about when you come to us is that you want to be a part of the community. You want to make new friends. You want to start dating or dating more successfully. And the way that you have been taught the strategies and skills in the past just haven't worked for you. And they haven't worked for the way that your brain is wiring. That's what we care about, not the label.
right. It makes sense, and I think the my point is that these days everyone's labeled with something, right? There's a
Yeah.
label for everything. So I always tell people, be careful when you start, whether it's self-diagnosis or whatever. So and to me it was sad because not only did he spend better part of his adult life thinking this is what he has, and he was trying to come to terms with it, but also he spent thousands of dollars on
Wow.
different types of treatments and things, and turns out that you know maybe there was something, but it wasn't such a traumatic thing, because to him that was very traumatic. But you said something about working with JCC, and this is kind of on the topic but off the topic. I've been trying to create events with our local Orange County JCC for years, and they don't want to. So maybe I need to go through you guys. I don't know. I've been trying to.
Well, this was the JCC in New York City.
Yeah.
I can talk to you about the JCC here in Irvine, separate from this.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing, and I think just even having singles events, that because that's how I met my husband was through our JCC when he was back in Costa Mesa. And I tell this story all the time. It was 1997. Yes. My mom, my Jewish mother, and my Jewish grandmother decided that I wasn't dating quality people. So they went to JCC. They saw an advertisement in the local paper or somewhere that our JCC is starting to have a singles kind of a dating thing. But back then, this was really before the internet, blew up. And I think it was just starting. So they had a book for guys and they had a book for girls. And you literally go in and you flip through and you put together your profile, on paper, and you just flip through and look at all the singles. So they told me they signed me up for a subscription. And I thought, oh my God. So I went over there and I looked and they put my glamour shots in there. Remember glamour shots?
Yeah.
Where they teased your hair and it was just out of control with, like off the shoulder top that made it look like you were kind of naked, but you weren't. And the fur, oh, it was awful. And he saw my picture. I saw his. I wasn't really that interested because he had a giant Jufro. Like literally, it was crazy. And he's 11 years older than me. But we ended up talking, for 5 hours the first night. And I was like, oh, okay, there's something there. But ever since then, I thought, how cool would it be to have events, especially for people who are having a hard time meeting someone and dating. And, my 24-year-old is really struggling as well because he hates online dating and it's not for everyone. Do you see
No.
that with your clients that come to you too, that they're really struggling with online dating as well?
It's more of a struggle for people on the spectrum than even it is for other people. And we actually offer a free training on our website. We go pretty into depth about why that is. But, just to kind of, in short, number one, the internet is full of hidden rules, right? There are all kinds of hidden rules for what photos to choose and what to write and who to write to and how often to write and how to ask them out, right? There are all these hidden rules that the neurodivergent brain oftentimes just doesn't pick up on.
Mm.
And so that's one major, major barrier. And then the other major barrier is that if you spend all this time learning how to navigate the hidden rules of the internet, it probably means that you're not working on your in-person skills, right? You're not working on your body language. You're not working on your what we call mental library, right? The questions you're asking, the answers you're giving. And so you put all this effort into, finding people on the internet, and then, you get that first phone call or that first Zoom or that first date, and you haven't been working on those skills and those strategies, and so you're really rusty and it doesn't go well, and now you're back to square one. So, a lot of people who are autistic and neurodivergent have told us that trying to meet people on the internet is actually twice as much work.
I'm sure. Yeah, it sounds like it. I think for people that don't struggle, um, it's just daunting in general, but those that may have, special needs and already questioning how they should be doing anything, that's even harder to deal with. So I guess that brings me to my next question is how does your coaching work? How do you approach it? What do you start with? What's the whole process? And I'm sure it's different for each person.
Well, we start with the same thing for everybody, which is what's the trash going on in your head that's keeping you stuck? We call it your inner critic. What's your inner critic saying? Because all the strategy in the world, all the best strategies in the world don't mean anything if the trash going on in your head, your inner critic, is keeping you stuck. So you have to understand what your brain is telling you. And then we go into compatibility. Who do you want in your life? Who do you not want in your life? That's really important, because you really need to have a vision of who you're looking for so that you don't end up with the wrong people. And then our program goes really deep into how do you find these people? And obviously, we're not just a dating program. For our clients, we help our clients find community. We help our clients with building friendships, and we
Mhm.
help our clients with the friendship aspect because they're all linked together, right?
Right.
You can't be a successful dater if you don't have friends. You
Hmm.
can't be a successful dater if you don't have stories to tell because you're part of something bigger than yourself. So all of those things come together, and that's what we work on in the program. It's holistic. It's about building a social life, including community, including friendships, and the dating aspect for the people who are ready for that.
Hmm.
And I would just add that what's really interesting is that Jeremy and I have actually experienced what our clients are going through because we're both from the East Coast. We moved 3,000 miles away from our friends and family. So we actually use the same exact strategy that we give our clients to build our community in California here. So we know that it's effective, and we joined our tribes, we joined communities, and that's how we built our closest friendships.
Right. It makes sense. So you not only coach and guide them, but do you actually go and find people for them as well? Or do you help with online dating? Or where does that aspect actually meeting someone?
So there's so many different paths that a person can take to meeting another human being, right? One of them is in your tribe, in your community. Another one is through online dating. That's not something that we support in the program just because of how much harder it is. But yeah, lots of people online date, including people on the spectrum. Another way is through matchmakers. Some of our clients have matchmakers and have met their girlfriends and boyfriends that way.
Speed dating is a big one.
Yeah, we have a proprietary speed dating strategy that is designed to use the neurodivergent mind as an advantage in speed dating events. And in fact, we were on a coaching call with one of our clients about a week and a half ago. And my first question was going to be, did you go to the speed dating events that you said you were going to go to? And he said no. And
Mm.
then my question was going to be why, but
But I have a good reason why.
and the reason was,
He's like, I landed a girlfriend from a
Oh,
past speed dating event that he had gone to. So that was
wow.
super exciting.
He met someone. Yeah. So you don't actually host the speed dating events, or you do?
no,
You
no,
No,
I am the world's worst
no.
events coordinator. We we had a lunch for our clients in San Francisco last week. We had a lunch for our
And you did an
clients.
excellent job planning it.
Thank you. We had a lunch for our clients in DC 2 months ago and New York before that. But I am not an events planner.
But also keep in mind that our clients are all around the country and
Yeah.
internationally. So we can't be everywhere. So we help them find the places within their community to find the right people that might belong in their life.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is another reason why we need to plan in events because I'm the best. And I love events. I haven't had them since right before COVID started, but I truly believe that people are so desperate for in-person events nowadays because it just, this online everything, speed dating, online dating, everything, there's nothing in person anymore and people work remote. I even look at someone like my son who works remotely and he goes to visit his dealerships, as he works for Ford Corporation, but mostly he's at home or he goes into an office once in a while and it's the same five people, or six people. Where are you supposed to meet? So, and he's not into the bar scene. He hates online dating. And, he says he is socially awkward. I think once he warms up, he gets better. I sure hope he's not listening to this one. They don't listen to anything anymore. But my point is that people really need in person events. Nowadays, more than ever, we've lost all of our skills on how to meet someone in person, right? With COVID, with just technology in general. So, do you work with all backgrounds? Do you only work with the Jewish community? How does that work?
We have clients of every religion. What unites them is that brain wiring that makes
Mm.
learning social strategies a challenge for them.
So,
But as long as they're over 17 and under 170 and they're willing to put in the effort, we
yeah.
will, we have an amazing coach. Her name is Cecile, and she will spend 90 minutes with a family. So, mom, dad, and young adult. We don't charge for it. And Cecile will really go deep into what's your social goals? Where are you getting stuck in the process? What do we see as the path forward? And she'll be very honest about whether or not she thinks that we're the right people to help.
Hmm. And that was my question about age. I think you answered that you work with all ages as long as they're adults, right?
Yeah.
And up to whatever. So what do you think was your oldest client? Or do you have like someone in their, 60s, 70s, or 80s?
Yeah, we have 2 clients over 70.
Wow.
Yep.
Do you approach it a little bit different because of their age, or is it pretty much the same?
I mean, we approach every person a little bit differently because every person is different.
Right.
And even these 2 folks who are over 70, one's a male, one's a female. They live in different parts of the country. They have different strengths. They have different things that aren't their strengths. So and they certainly have very different passions. So yeah, we have to approach it a little bit differently, but we have to approach everyone a little bit differently.
Right. So I know you were just at an event. I think you said it was in Northern California. Do you want to tell me a little bit about how you work or operate when you do these events? What do you talk about? And
Yeah. So, I think a lot of adults who are autistic and neurodivergent and a lot of their parents, they have been looking for years and years and years and years for a solution to their social struggles.
Mm.
And what happens is over the course of time, you just accumulate so much information, and a lot of it's contradictory, a lot of it's just bad, some of it's good. But how do you separate the good from the bad? And after years and years and years of just struggling and rejection, how do you decide what your path is forward? So Alana and I travel all around the world, not just San Francisco last week, but DC and Philadelphia, Montreal. We were in Jerusalem last year. We go all around the country in person and sometimes virtually, and we talk with organizations and their members about what is the path to getting from where you are now socially to where you want to be. And we try to make it into 5 very practical steps. But that's what we did. We went up to San Francisco and we partnered with an organization called Schuppen Community, which is part of the Jewish Family and Children Services Network. And about 20 people?
I think it was closer to 30.
About 30 people.
Quite a nice crew.
Yeah, we sat in a really nice conference room and had some good snacks, and Alana and I talked about how to get from where you are now to where you want to be, and then we had a really great discussion afterwards. And then the next day we got together with our clients in the Bay Area because I would say about 20% of our clients are in and around San Francisco, and we hosted a pizza party at a brewery for them. So all these people who kind of know each other from being part of our community now get to actually like hang out with each other in person and hang out with us. And
yeah.
it's really nice to be able to give a nice big hug to these families that we know so well, but we don't often get to see them in person.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing when you do help and to see the fruits of your labor and to see them blossom, so to speak, right? Into
Yeah.
just more confident individuals. And it's almost like having children, you know?
It's funny you say that. During one of our weekly community calls, one of our clients who's done exceptionally well in the program, he has a more vibrant social life than I do, quite honestly. He's just so social. And, you know, he was talking, he's having friends over this weekend and he has 30 people coming to his apartment.
Yeah.
But he said to Jeremy, he's like, Jeremy, you are our father. You birthed us. We were just like, oh
Aw.
boy.
Yeah.
But it's
A
like really like gave him life again to have confidence and take the most of his social life, you know, take advantage of his social life and make the most of opportunities. And he's in a very different place, you know, in terms of confidence socially, than he was a couple months ago.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say it's like it's a whole new life. Like you gave them a
Yeah.
whole new life now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when I first started matchmaking, and it was only because I would meddle into people's love life all the time, just strangers, random people. That's all I really always want to know is how's your love life? How's your sex life? Have you eaten today? Might be a Jewish thing, but so when you brought up good snacks, I was like, yeah, food makes all of this so much better. And to be able to bond over things. And so all of my events, there has to be food involved. And I remember other matchmakers who were not like Eastern European or not Jewish. They just didn't understand why I was always have to have food at my events. I'm like, you can't not have food at an event. Plus, I don't want people drinking on an empty stomach, It's so, but that wasn't even my point. The whole point was that it's amazing that I do feel like I'm a mother to all of these children sometimes. And when I first started doing this, to me, it's so natural to just approach people. And like my kids say, you can have an hour conversation with a door, and then the door will come out of it was like all this knowledge. I have no problem talking to people, but it took me a while to understand how others operate and that it may not be a natural thing for them to just go up to a random stranger or even people that they know. So I had to kind of either um, bring in other coaches that understand that better or pivot what I do. Is there something, which brings me to my question, is there something that you have learned, both of you, along the way that to kind of adjust or change certain things, or because they're teaching us as much as we're teaching them, right? Like in child rearing, it's the same thing. So was there something that you kind of went, ooh, we can pivot this way or maybe change something? Was there ever things like that where you've adjusted the way you coach or guide people, the way you work with them?
Yeah. So we embarked on a
Oh,
massive.
took the words out of my
Oh,
mouth.
go for it. You
No.
no,
Go
you
ahead.
go.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that we undertook this big project to revamp our curriculum. And through the process, you know, we were rewriting the curriculum in each module, and then we would preview it with our community. So we would get their feedback. So it was really a collaborative process. And it was really beautiful because now it's something that's created by and for the neurodivergent mind, and it's just going to make it so much easier and better for them to learn going forward.
Yeah, that collaborative process with our clients was really, really huge. But I think part of the reason why our clients really enjoyed the curriculum so much is because we're teaching human skills. We're not teaching autism skills or
Mm,
neurodivergent skills. We're teaching human skills, but we're teaching it in a way that the neurodivergent brain better understands and can better absorb it. I've watched a lot of social skills programs, right? And it's generally like neurotypical people teaching, you know, neurotypical skills in a neurotypical way. And the neurodivergent brain isn't absorbing it. And so the magic of our program is that we decode the social world and we decode social skills and strategies into formulas and diagrams and
mm,
processes and checklists. So we're not telling you, for example, to go on the internet and, do some research on communities available in your area. We're getting down into the nitty gritty and we're telling you step one, open up 3 browser tabs.
mm.
Step two, this is what you're going to put into each browser tab. right? And we get down to a really granular level, making no assumptions about what our clients can and can't do, and do and don't understand. And that is a completely different perspective on how to teach strategies and skills to people.
Hmm. Well, that was my next question is, can you give some examples of what you do, but you just did. So you are literally showing them how to do step by step and not just generally saying, oh, go and meet up or go find a group to hike with or whatever.
Yeah, we literally show screenshots of every single click that you need to do to find what you're looking for. But, that's part of it. The other part of it is just the decoding of the social world.
Mm.
So, like an example, we had a parent of one of our clients who sent me an email at midnight one day and said, I realize why my son is not clicking with people, particularly women. And I said, okay, why? And she said, because he learned his entire life to say things that are relevant in response, but those relevant things don't connect. And
Mm.
I said, okay, give me an example. And she said, okay, well, you had a client in Oakland who said he may need to break up with the girl that he's dating, and met through a matchmaker, by the way, because they have cultural differences. And her son said, I broke up with a girl once.
It
Okay.
becomes a very me-centered approach. Like you're bringing the conversation back to yourself as opposed to caring about the other person.
Yeah. And
Mm.
then she gave me another example. She said, your client in Wyoming said that he played in a band last week. And her son commented, I played guitar in the past. Again, as
Mm.
Alana said, it's very me centered. It's relevant, but it doesn't connect. And she said, well, what am I missing? And I said, he's missing the formula, which we call the emotional reaction formula in our program, which is reaction word, reaction phrase, and then you follow it up with a story or a question. So, the way that would be applied is, our client, for example, said he may have to break up with his girlfriend, and you apply the formula, and you can get something like, oh man, that really sucks. I broke
Mm.
up with a girl once. I know how it feels. How are you doing? Or when our client in Wyoming is saying that he's playing in a bar, in a band, oh wow, that's so cool. I used to play guitar. What's it like to be in a band? And
Yeah.
now, using that formula, he can go out into the world. He can see how other people use the formula. It'll make more sense to him. And in fact, he used the formula and the skills that we were teaching him to make a close friend that he now hangs out with all the time. But it took that decoding of the emotional reaction to really kind of make that connection with another person.
Mhm. And do you think because you working with the whole family sometimes as well, or a lot of times, right? You're getting the insights that, for example, I don't get when I'm working with someone. And so many times I wish that people would let me talk to their family members or let me talk to their ex-wife, ex-girlfriend, whatever, because it's those little things that they're not sharing with us that they think either one, it's not relative. Number two, we're not hearing it from the other side. So it's fascinating because now I want to force people to allow me to talk to their family members, their siblings. And I wish it was more the norm. So do you ever get a pushback from the clients or from the family members, or they pretty much want to help them, so they want to be involved?
I mean, you deal with this a lot, so why don't you start?
Yeah, it really depends on the family dynamic. Some clients come to us and they want to do the program entirely by themselves. They don't want their parents
Mm.
involved at all, and that's totally fine. We respect that decision. The parents have to be there for the initial strategy session, but once they're in the program, we leave it to them to decide. But for a lot of families, having that family support is really really important. Um, the parents can help with the research to help them find their tribe, find their community, and really just push them along, hold them accountable, and it really is a beautiful team effort.
Yeah,
Yeah,
collaborate.
we definitely get some pushback
Mm.
from young adults about, why do my parents have to be on that initial strategy session, right? That initial consultation. But they get it, right? Because we want their perspective. It helps us understand if we're going to be the right fit for them. Their parents are probably going to be part of the decision-making process about whether they're going to join the program. So we might as well let them ask their questions as well. And we really want to help our people avoid frustration. And what happens a lot of times is, when we only do a call with one person, we have a great conversation. They get super excited because they see this path forward, and now they go to their parents and say, hey, I want to do this. What do you think? And the parents have been burned by who knows how many things in the past.
They just have no buy-in because they weren't part of that conversation.
So on
Right.
that initial strategy session, we are absolutely 100% insistent that, mom, dad, young adult, or whatever the family looks like shows up. But as Alana said, if they want to work with us, every family can choose for itself whether the parents are involved or not. And we do have plenty of clients who do it all by themselves.
Yeah, I think it's so important, and it's not the cultural norm anymore, right? And what whether it's working with matchmakers or coaches, well, it's you're an adult, it should just be you and me working on this. But I come from a different culture. So the whole family is always involved, not just in a Jewish family, but in our Eastern European, and I always say the ex Soviet families, because people lived with their parents and grandparents their whole life. There was usually two generations, three generations, everybody was involved, and there was that village that we talk about these days that we don't have anymore, especially when we're having kids and raising kids. And it's very much an American thing, I feel like, that it's just you're on your own. So I'm so inspired by hearing you say that I'm actually going to make changes in the way that I operate too,
Oh,
because
wow.
I got so much pushback from people saying that, my mom wants to come and join on the call. I had a gentleman who brought his mom to our initial meeting, and I thought it was really cool because that never happens, and it was always well, the client attorney privilege thing. I'm like, it's your family, it's your mom, and like I want to be involved in my son's decision making and partnership, because you're not just marrying that person, you're marrying the whole family.
Yep.
Right. And I think people forget that unless you're going to be separated by a world, or an island, you're going to be on an island somewhere without your family members, you're all going to be together. And so having them in that decision process, I think I'm just really in my head, I'm thinking about like how I'm going to change things now. So I'm so glad you shared that. um and I wanted to say too, when you're going back to the example you gave, it's it's so interesting, because this is all I talk about with my clients, with my kids, with people around me, with family members. And I have a lot of family members that I'm not going to say which side in case they listen, but it's the same thing where you share something with them, right? And I see it with my clients as well, where you share something and you get nothing in return. So I always tell them, absorb it, absorb what they just told you. I play guitar, or I played in a band. Absorb that information and at least acknowledge it with a nod, something, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, like, very cool. I heard you. Make them feel like you heard them before you share something back, right? And it always drove me crazy. And I didn't know if it was whether it was just different cultures, just different people, whatever it is. But I hear it all the time. So I'm glad you brought up that example. And I keep talking about it because it's so, I tell my kids that too, before you say something just about you and make it sound so selfish, just absorb the information, you know so and let them know you heard them, you heard what they said, you know so I think it's pretty common that we both kind of coach people the same way. And a lot of times people say, well, they know I heard them, I'm sitting here listening. No, but you gave no verbal feedback do you have any advice for people listening, whether they're on the spectrum or just socially, having a hard time? What is your biggest advice that you can give people when they're out there trying to find their people, whether friendships or dating?
I mean, honestly, and I know that this is a bit of a shameless plug, we have a 35-minute free training on our website that's all about exactly that question, right? It's about what are the practical steps that you can take starting today to get from where you are now to where you want to be. And in 35 minutes, you can have a really nice overview of how to get to where you want to be. And it's simpler than the million things that are floating around in your head, which you don't know what to choose from.
Just to add on to that, I would say preparation is really important. We talk to our clients about building their mental library, and the same way you wouldn't go into an interview without being prepared, going out into the social world, you should have questions prepared to ask. You should have answers ready to give, dynamic answers, not just one word answers. So really just being prepared for those conversations.
And hinted that is one of the steps in the training.
So they would just go to your website, mybestsociallife.com, and then is it right there?
Yeah, it's right there. There's a button. It's free. You just have to give your name and email address, and it's 35 minutes. And people have told us that it has literally like opened their eyes, inspired them, lit a fire under their tuchus. We've made now 19, 20, 21 versions of this training. Every one of them just gets better and better, and this one's pretty darn awesome.
So you do it yourself on your website?
Yeah, I wrote it. I recorded it with Alana. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And I've just noticed that it's My Best Social Life, just one L. There's no two L's, right?
No, there's 2 L's.
Oh, there are two L's.
Sociallife.com.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. So I will put all the links, I will put everything in the description. I think it's so important for people to have the right tools because, like you said, there's so much stuff out there and there's so much crap out there.
Yep.
It's like I always tell people, stop listening to your single friends, stop listening to their advice, because they're also single. And most likely your single friends want you to stay single because then they're not going to have friends to hang out with if you become, you start dating. Plus, not only that, but it's not always the greatest advice, So I love that you guys have created this whole system. It's not just random things. Do this, do this, do that. It's like a whole comprehensive curriculum. So it's a whole education.
It's a whole education, the A to Z of how to build a social life. And not only is it a comprehensive education, it also, our program includes a community for our clients, a community for our parents, a community for people who live in the same location. We do a group coaching call every week, which is super inspiring. Individual coaching by Zoom and by email. It's all part of the program. It is an entire ecosystem that is designed to help you build a social life. That's why I work 7 days a week.
Yeah. Well, so that brings me to my question about what is it like working together with your spouse, with your partner? And be honest.
We love it.
It's absolutely the best. I wouldn't trade it for a minute. I mean, I love Alana very, very much. I love the way her brain works. Our brains work very, very differently, and so we're good complements for each other. And I literally wake up every day, and I could not be happier that I work next to my spouse.
Wow. I love it. I love it. So, because I've asked that of a matchmaking couple, and it wasn't the same result. I remember asking them, what are the pros and the cons? And there was a lot of cons. And in my head, I was thinking, why are we still doing this then? Why do you still do this? Because, well, first of all, I think people don't know how to set boundaries, right? Because you live together, you work together, you have children, you have schedules. Do you consciously make rules and cut off times to this is work, now this is our life, and this is something else. Like you start your day with this, then we finish at this time. And you have to have rules, right?
I need to be better about
Yeah.
those. I think about our clients 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No, tell her.
I was still in my dress when we got back to our hotel, and he was messaging with clients.
So I definitely need to get better about setting boundaries between my personal life and my coaching life. But I love my clients so much, and they put so much faith in us that it's very hard for me to put down the phone and put down the email and say, I'm gonna leave this till tomorrow.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Right. Well, I think as long as it doesn't bother Ilana, then
No, we're both cool with it. So
right.
so far so good.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to be interesting once the baby comes too, right? Because you're going to have to obviously adjust your schedules and everything.
Yeah.
You guys talked about that moving forward, or you're still kind of working it out?
Yeah, we're feeling it out.
Yeah.
The baby's still some time away. So as we get closer and it becomes more real, some decisions will have to be made, including a name for the baby.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually didn't have a name for our youngest for a very long time. I was sure I was having a girl, and it wasn't until he was born. And we just couldn't decide on a name. I had like all these girl names picked out, and I already had a boy. I was like, no, this is going to be a girl. And, till the very end, I'm like, oh my God, it is really a boy, another boy. So because I had a C-section, they keep you in the hospital longer. So like on the fourth day or fifth day when I was leaving, the nurse comes back, or the I forget the name. They do the whole registry, social security, all of that, and you got to give them a name. And he kept being Baby Bendis, And she's like, "Well, you're leaving today. If I don't do this now, you're gonna have to go yourself to the social security office and you register them and everything." And I was like, "I really don't know." She was like, "I'm gonna give you 1 hour. I'm gonna come back."
Wow.
It was just so tough for me because, our first one is Tyler and his middle name is David for my grandfather. And the second one was like, okay, well, I liked Jacob, but my husband didn't like Jacob. So finally landed Nicholas with a K, just a K to make it more, Eastern European sounding. And we gave him a very, Jewish middle name, Shia. And he's like, why that name? Like, okay, you're on your own now, you're 18, you can go change your name. But it was literally like 5 days. I'm like, I have no idea what we're naming you.
Funny.
Awesome.
So don't do that. Maybe, have a plan. But
Or you could send over all the names on your girl list, because we're stumped for girl names.
okay, I will be. I don't know what back 18 years ago, almost 19 years ago, the names. I wonder, they're all coming back. It's like fashion. Fashion starts to come back. And then I also was fascinated. My last question to you, and I'll let you guys go. I'm sure I'll have more questions next time too. But I was so fascinated when I found out, Jeremy, you just very casually kind of mentioned that Dr. Ruth, like in one of our matchmaking groups, like very casually. Oh, yes, she's part of our whatever. I was like, what? So you have to tell me a little bit about that, how you know her.
Well, she emigrated to the United States from Germany to the same neighborhood that my grandparents lived in. We were part of the same synagogue for generations, and she was very close to my grandma. She was very close to my parents. She spoke at my bar mitzvah. So I always loved Dr. Ruth though because she's like 4'10", 4'11", and as I grew up, and we would walk to synagogue, with her or whatever. That's how I would measure how tall I was getting.
I love it. That's amazing. It's a great story, and my God, it's just how inspiring she is, and just I mean, I'm just obsessed with everything about sex. So, to me, she's like my, you know, whatever you call it, aspire to be, But, well, if there's any last minute words that you guys want to share with our listeners, advice, anything you want to share, please do before we wrap up.
I would just say, if you're neurodivergent or autistic, or you have a son or a daughter or a family member who's autistic and they're ready to build a social life, reach out to us. My email address is jeremy@mybestsociallife.com. Or if you know that you want to sit down with our coach, Cecile, and see whether we're the right match for you, you can book that 90-minute free session with her. And that's mybestsociallife.com/apply.
Mhm.
And we'll spend 90 minutes going into what the dream is, what's going wrong, how to fix it, and whether we're the right people to fix it with you. And if you join the community, our Social Life 360 program, it's the best group of people on the face of the earth. Really is. I wake up every day and I'm just excited to be a part of this and to run this.
Oh, that's so good to hear. You don't hear that often, And I'm actually going to take that test because I maybe you have some advice for me for people that are on the opposite, where they're too pushy. As my kids say, "Mom, you've got to chill. It's too much." Like I get way too, involved is not even the word. I just want to know everything about people and I want to hear their whole life story. So I'm a little too much. But I don't know if you can help with that problem. Where
I'll
too
think about that.
too socially outgoing, like it's too much, and it's inevitably very embarrassing for my children. But it is what it
Isn't
is.
that your job in life, to embarrass your children?
Exactly. That's what I thought. That's why I had kids,
Right?
But I want to thank you guys for joining me and for talking, and we'll definitely have to do this again.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Well, come back, talk to me again. I will post everything and I'll have all the links. And hopefully, people have enjoyed, and we'll have you back on and talk more.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share. And even if you didn't enjoy it, share anyway. Thank you for listening and come back to Someone Had to Say It.